This is Why Ukraine, and I'm here to announce the best news that we've gotten this whole war. Better than HIMARS, better than ATACMS, better than F-16s. And that's the news that we have today. And honestly, everyone I've spoken to here in Ukraine, well, in the last hour since I got the message, has been like, wow, this is amazing. This is the best thing that could happen. Ukraine to fire generals and send them to the front line. They're going to cut the top brass by 2/3. And it says it aims to boost morale among rank and file soldiers. And let me tell you, it will do exactly that. Every single soldier I have spoken to here, every single Ukrainian soldier and a lot of foreign fighters have spoken about the incredible ineptitude and corruption of the generals and commanders in general, speaking very generally here in Ukraine. That obviously doesn't apply to all of them, but you can guarantee these guys, this is the general staff as of 2019. I'm sure it's changed now, but these guys are all Soviet trained, Soviet educated, essentially Soviet generals. And to the extent that they remain in the Ukrainian army, Ukraine will lose. Every Ukrainian tells me all the time, a smaller Soviet army cannot defeat a larger Soviet army. Look at these guys. Okay, and it's not about the fact that with their age in particular. It's about how they were trained, in what era, and what their thought processes are. And so this is just really going to be a very short video today. I'm going to do a longer live stream later on this afternoon. If you'd like to come to that, we are holding a raffle. We just raised enough money to buy a drone to send to the front lines. This will be the 4th drone now, technically, that I've been able to bring out to the front lines. And yeah, so in fact, my mother-in-law, who's like 65, had to translate when I read the headline. And her first response was, "Maladets," with talking about Zelensky. This is proof to the Ukrainian people that Zelensky is serious about rooting out corruption and making real changes to the Ukrainian military. And it's very interesting how it kind of parallels and is happening at a similar time to Putin's purge of generals. And it's very interesting how the neo-Soviet government of Russia is handling this, where they're sending their army chiefs to jail or blowing them up in airplanes, and here in Ukraine, it's not every single general. It's apparently 2/3 of the generals, and I'm sure what they're going to do is go through and figure out which ones have had good I hope, which ones have had good performance and bad. There are a lot of newer generals who've come up since 2014 or even 2022 who were NATO trained and then have been, commanders on the battlefield who are probably much better, much less corrupt, certainly. I had a conversation just yesterday with a whole group of Ukrainians on this very subject, and how the entirety of Ukrainian society needs to change. But I would say that there's a cutoff age of roughly 40. if you were raised up in the Soviet Union, you have this sort of just inherent smikolka, as they call it, which means kind of like cleverness. But it's a little bit like fuck the system, you know. That's what Ukrainians want to do, which is kind of an admirable thing. They want to admirable thing. They want to stand up to the higher authority. The problem is when you are the higher authority, now you're just a corrupt person. You're just a corrupt general. I'm not casting accusations at any one of these generals, but every Ukrainian will tell you that the only way they got to the level that they did within the old Soviet system and in the post-Soviet system up until roughly 2014 was through corruption, was through buying their positions. And a lot of them, they up until 2014 and even up until 2022, they were friends with, they have friends and family in the former in Russia. You know, they're well, even Starsky, his parents live there. Now, I don't know if Starsky's going to be let go. Maybe this was his idea. But I would even go so far as to suggest that this idea has been floating around. I've heard it from a lot of Ukrainians many, many times. And I would even go so far as to suggest that the ultimate reason that Zaluzhny was let go is because he wasn't willing to take this step. For whatever reason. Not that he wasn't a good general or whatever. He just, this needed to happen, and he wasn't ready and willing to do it. So that is all I have to say, guys. It's amazing, great news for Ukraine. And if anybody tells you, oh, Ukraine's in chaos, they had to fire all their generals, that's Russian propaganda. That's just straight up Russian propaganda. This is an amazing thing. It's a great thing for Ukraine. And I just couldn't wait to talk about it. So I will see you, those of you who want to come to our raffle at 7 p.m. Kyiv time. In the meantime, Slava Ukraine.